Yu-Gi-Oh is pay to win, a sentiment we've heard many times. While you need to be good in order to do well, is also hidden behind a pretty steep pay barrier. And most of the time, in order to compete at a decently high level, even at locals, you have to spend money on a better deck. But that doesn't mean that there aren't good decks you can build for cheap. And right now in Yu-Gi-Oh is a special time where we have a tier 1 meta strategy that is honestly pretty cheap. And if you'd asked me a month ago what that would be, what strategy that'd be, I would have said Blue Eyes. Duh, that's the deck that I was playing. But no, this deck recently won the last 2 YCSs. It's none other than Memento. And with the brand new Rarity Collection Stampede reprints, this deck has become very affordable. But this deck is a little more unique too, because when I make this video, I'm usually just thinking about TCG in mind. This deck is also, coincidentally, now tier 1 in Master Duel. So while each version may differ slightly, I'm going to spend the rest of this video explaining to you guys an in-depth way of approaching Memento. And while I may not have the best or perfect understanding of the deck, I can give you guys a great idea of how your general turn should be playing out, what to look for, key differences between the versions, as well as how it budgets out to something fantastic. And I'll show you guys here that if you already have a general set of staples, and you want to keep things on the cheaper side, you can build this whole deck for less than $50. So here is a simple deck list you can use if you want to keep things relatively budget, while also just maintaining the general staples. Now, what is the overall idea and overarching play pattern with Memento? Well, Memento is a very cool deck where, almost like Ritual Beast, it feels like you're trying to do collections of all the different names. Have you ever heard anybody play that deck or how to play it properly? What you want to do is cycle through every single name possible, like you're collecting Pokemon. And Memento is similar. Your idea is to cycle through all of your different Memento monsters. They all grab each other, and eventually you'll have a full graveyard that you can then manipulate into making meaningful disruptions and pushes. With that in mind, let's go over each card individually, and we'll see how that pans out into a cohesive game plan. Our main boss monster is Memento Tecohictla Combined Creation. These names are Nautl or Aztec. There will be some pronunciation issues. I'm trying my best, but yeah. So this guy is your boss monster of the deck that summons itself from the hand or graveyard by shuffling back 5 of the mementos. This is a summon condition, not an effect. It's important for its ability to be prevented, as well as because it doesn't start a chain. It means you can't chain DD Crow or some other nonsense to it. As a boss monster itself, it's actually kind of underwhelming. Its effects don't read crazy broken, but the fact that the rest of the deck works so well with this is why this plays out. At a 5k stat line though, it is pretty powerful, so you can't just leave this thing uncontested. And while you control the monsters, this card can also attack all monster opponent controls once each. This is important for some kill shots, you're cleaning up a field. And then also, once per turn, if your opponent uses a card or effect, especially Memento from your hand or your graveyard. So yeah, I mean, effect-wise, it really just summons a monster during your opponent's turn. And this doesn't seem that good for boss monsters, but it does support the rest of the deck well. And when you see a turn play out, you'll understand why. The next big boss monster of this deck is the fusion monster, the big one, because there are 2. And that is Memento Tecohictla Creation King. A 3000 attack level 9 fusion requires 3 Memento monsters, but that's not hard to do, so don't worry. It can banish yourself from the graveyard to add a Memento from deck to hand. That is the field spell, which, if you read it, actually doesn't seem that good, but it plays so well with this deck's synergies and playstyle that it is actually a very strong card. And then it has 2 other effects, and it gets even better. First is, if it's fusion summoned, you can send 3 Memento cards from your deck and or extra deck to the graveyard. Remember I said you want to cycle through all your Mementos? 3 cards helps you cycle a lot. But that's not it, because this card will also serve as one of your best forms of pushes and disruption, because as a quick effect, you can target a number of Mementos you control, and an equal number of cards your opponent controls, and then destroy both of them. So this can be a complete field nuke for both players. And you have a lot of destruction abilities, we'll see that later on, that mean that you don't mind blowing up your own cards while your opponent may suffer pretty big. Those 2 cards there are going to be the absolute most important in terms of your end field pieces, but that may not tell the full picture of Mementos. So let's go through some of the other cards that help you get there. The other Memento fusion is Memento Twin Dragon. Now, when this deck was first announced back in Valiant Smashers in the TCG, it looked to be one of the weakest decks printed. And then in order for Konami to make this deck a tier 1 threat, they made a fusion spell and 2 fusion monsters, which are so absurdly broken. Twin Dragon is pretty much on par in terms of insanity. So it makes any monster that you kill with it or Memento monster banished, which is whatever. But more importantly, When it's fusion summoned, you can destroy a Memento monster from your hand or your field, including itself, to add up to 2 Mentos with different names to connect your hand. So again, to keep cycling the names, which is super easy. But then also, if this fusion summon card is destroyed, you can summon level 6 or lower Memento from your graveyard. So then it can cycle back into something else. So if you dumped something from grave off of one of other effects, like your Creation King, you can now bring it back. And plenty of cards have effects you can then use. Now we have 2 different ways of cycling through our Memento fusions. We plan on using both every turn, that way we get to fuse twice. The first and most impactful is Memento Fusion. Now this card is one of the best cards I've ever read as well. It is a quick play spell that's you fusion summon during the main phase for any monster, including a Memento. So not just Memento cards, like you can fuse from anything. But if a monster in your possession was destroyed by a card effect this turn, by your own accord or by your opponents, you can shuffle Mentos from your graveyard as material for that fusion monster. So this is like a Miracle Fusion that shovels back instead of banishing, but quick play, but can also fuse for other stuff. Phenomenal. But oh, I'm sorry, did you think it ended there? No, because during the main phase, you can banish it from the graveyard to destroy a monster you control and add a Memento spell or trap from your deck to your hand. And you can see, really cycle through your resources, cycle through every single card in the deck. That type of game plan is very apparent. Furthermore, Fusion's effect can add another fusion. So if you never drew fusion or have no way to search it, say you got stopped on your way to search it, and then you send this card from deck to graveyard via your Creation King or one of your other dump effects, you can banish it to add another copy itself and then fuse again. So yeah, when you're trying to go through every single fusion in a turn, this resolving is pretty important and you can make that happen. The other fusion effect is Memento Sheeply, and this is actually my favorite Memento card because its applications are pretty cool. And this doesn't seem like the best card. And in comparison to the cards I just read, 2 fusion monsters in a spell, this is not as broken. But the card is very, very, very vital to how this all plays out. So during the turn a monster in your possession was destroyed by a card effect, special up in your hand is a quick effect. So that means something gets destroyed, you don't have to summon it immediately, you can wait till later. And then when it's summoned, you can fusion summon a Memento fusion from your extra deck by using monsters in your hand or field. That's awesome, because we needed more ways to summon Twin Thunder and your Creation King. And because it's a quick effect, you can do this super flexibly on your opponent's turn as well. Furthermore, if this card is destroyed by battle and card effects, you can send a Memento card from your deck to the graveyard. So when you fuse this away for like your Twin Dragon, and then you pop it to search 2 and then revive 1, you can revive the Sleepy and then later pop the Sleepy again to dump another one. And again, continuing the cycle of cards. Now Sleepy is fantastic, but it's just a one of because you can search it incredibly easy. And the card we're going to be searching it off of, or I guess adding it off of, is its kind of counterpart, but also the worst card to draw on the deck. Memento Gaddock, your little Karibo. A level 2 fiend, which on summon, targets a Memento card in your graveyard and adds to your hand. Furthermore, if it's sent to the graveyard by the effect of a Memento monster, you can summon it back. So yeah, this card is how you retrieve things from going to the graveyard, because you have a lot of effects that dump, not just Creation King, not just Sleepy. We'll see 2 more later on, and this card plays perfectly with those. Ideally, if you can send Sleepy alongside Gaddock, you revive Gaddock, add back a Sleepy, and then you proceed into your fusion lines. Drawing this card can be hard though, because when you do draw it, it means that the rest of your Memento cards can't send it from deck to grave, and that can feel awkward. Though it is not a death sentence, so we mustn't get too preoccupied by it. Now, how are we searching out our Gaddock? Well, the one that is the best is probably our Memento Tatsuno Tushigo. Yeah, it's a bit of a mouthful. So this one is level 5 beast, which says if you control no monsters or they're all Mementos, special summon it from your hand. And then also during your main phase, you can destroy a Memento you control and then send any number of Mentos from your deck to the graveyard whose total levels equal the number destroyed, or the level that you destroyed. What you do is you destroy itself typically, and it can send total levels equaling 5. Gaddock's a 2, Sleepy's a 3. Perfect. Sets it all up very easily. Furthermore, this plays into the destruction clause. So when you have effects that trigger off destruction, you get to revive. Now Tushigo isn't the only way of doing this 2-card combo of Sleepy and Gaddock. The other one is Memento Goblin, and the Goblin tag will matter later, which says you can destroy a Memento you control and send up to 2 Mentos with different names from each other from deck to the graveyard. But Goblin does have one other effect as well, and that is during the main phase you can discard it if you control Combined Creation, and then for the rest of the turn, your opponent cannot target Memento monsters with card effects. This one's not too important, but can make you extremely hard to interact with, and in some cases, get you over to the next turn. Now those are kind of the main ways that the cards work together, but there's a couple other important Memento monsters we'll go over as well, that also continue the cycle. Darkblade, for example, is one, level 4, which on summon can discard a Memento, target spell trap when it controls, and destroy it. This effect is like bait, to be honest. I've talked about this in my locals vlogs a couple times, and because it's an on summon effect, it means if you summon this during your opponent's turn, say you had a Twin Dragon and you on summon it off Sleepy, and it pops itself, and then you revive this from the grave, Then you can use this on summon effect to destroy spell and trap, which can be important versus things like True Light or Prominent Authority Load. So not to be forgotten, but also not to be obsessed over. That's not the reason you play this card. The real reason is it helps you cycle through your deck in the ways that I mentioned. Where during your main phase, you can destroy a Memento you control and special level 3 lower Memento from your deck. So you can destroy itself, summon a low level 1 from the deck, and ideally you're summoning Mental Anguish. Every time someone lets you add a Memento from your deck to your hand. Now, ironically, adding from deck to hand can be a little weird in this deck. A lot of cards don't do that much in the hand. You'd almost rather send it to the graveyard. But Anguish is still incredibly important for adding your Sleepy if you destroy this turn, like off Darkblade, or adding the Task no Tushigo, which can summon itself in the hand and then start dumping. Also important to note that you can summon this on the opponent's turn to add quick effects, like the Goblin or the Sleepy, or another card we'll get to in a second, from deck to your hand, that you can then use as disruption on the opponent's turn. But Anguish has one other effect that continues the train of cycling. Then you can target level 2 lower Memento in your grave, then destroy a Memento you control, and summon the targeted monster. Now what this works well with is one of our last Memento monsters and our last piece of cycling through monsters, and that is a Mentotlan Mace. Level 1, which in your opponent's main phase, you can discard it if you can control Combined Creation to take control of one monster your opponent has. So yeah, it's like a little Snatch Steal or Change of Heart for the turn, which is really powerful disruption. And the idea here is you can go like Combined Creation, revive the Anguish, search Mace, discard Mace, and steal a monster. So that's your way of converting those summons into disruptions. But this card also has an effect for on the field when you summon it off of Anguish or any other ability. Then as you can destroy a Memento you control to add a Memento card from your deck to your hand. Now ideally you're adding one of your spells off this because your spells have less flexibility to search them and they do more in the hand than most monsters. But the fact that it searches anything means you can be flexible. But lastly, there are two more Memento monsters to talk about that are less important, but honestly still crazy. And first up, we got Mentotlan Horned Dragon. So this one is the one that some people consider cutting. I've been a fan of this card because it allows you to do some flexible plays when you don't end on a full field or continue to layer up your disruption, as well as it can be an okay extender to go into SP. SP being a good thing to stop cards like Vaudeo and Emperor. We have 3 or more Memento monsters with different names in your grave, specialist card in your hand. Cool. You can only summon once per turn this way, yeah, whatever. And then importantly, if this card is destroyed by card effect, you target 3 face-up cards on the field, including a Memento you control, to destroy all of them. So why is this good? Well, ideally what you're doing is you're actually destroying this during the opponent's turn, and then you're going to pop 2 cards they control on one of your Mementos, and that's fine. Because of how your Mementos float or get effects when they're destroyed, you don't mind this remotely. But it does serve as another form of disruption when paired with your Creation King, and yeah. And then lastly, talking about cards that trigger when they're destroyed, we got Mentotlan Akihiro, the last one, which my last video you guys said was cactus, not a fish. Look at this card. Does it look like a cactus to you? Yes, this card is like your brick in the deck, but it's the brick. There's a couple bricks, but this is like your Fire King Garunix of sorts. So for one, the turn that's summoned, you can make level 9 or higher Mentos attack directly this turn. The bigger effect is when it's destroyed by a card effect, you can target one of your Memento cards that are banished in your grave at your hand. This fixes the weakness of cards like DD Crow or Cobra the Grave, sniping your one of Memento cards you can't afford to play more of, like Gaddock or Combined Creation. This also lets you recycle cards like Memento Fusion to bolster your fields. With how easy it is to destroy this card, that's not a problem. The next problem is getting it onto the field, but that's super easy because the next effect is, if a Memento monster in your hand or field is destroyed by battle card effects, when this card is in your grave, you can summon this card. Now both effects are once per turn, but you can use each effect in the same turn. This card is going to be just another extender for generating bodies, generating defense, as well as recycling resources in a healthy fashion. Also, when you popping off on your opponent's turn, this card coming back gives you extra materials to pop with Creation King to nuclear field or to fuse away into the Creation King. Now, I know I've rambled on for quite a bit, but we got 2 other cards to quickly go over, and that is first Memento Bone Party, another fantastic quick play spell that defines this deck. Now, a big trend you'll see in this deck, as well as what people talk about it, is that it uses quick play spell cards to dodge a lot of target effects or negations and other sort of abilities, which is to destroy a Memento in your hand or field, take another Memento from your deck with a different name, either at your hand or summon it. Super flexible. You can also banish from the graveyard to give Memento piercing, but that's not too important. This is great as an extender, consistency, and for dodging cards like Valor and Impermanence. If you're up against this deck, just remember this deck has a lot of cards like this, so you have Valor and Imperm and you're thinking of using it, try not to leave yourself vulnerable to this. You can do the effects to Valor and Imperm on something on summon, or if you don't get the opportunity, consider holding your Valor or Imperm. Lastly, we got the field spell, Memento Mitlan, which may not read as a super impressive card, but the fact that it's free thanks to Creation King is pretty good. If your Memento monster battles, your opponent cannot execute spells or traps, and the damage step, whatever. If a monster you control is destroyed by battle or card effect, you try one of those monsters and summon a Memento from your graveyard with a lower level, and that's whatever. But if a monster you control is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can target that monster and then summon a Memento from your hand or graveyard at a lower level than the monster that was destroyed. So you get to summon back whatever you need. And lastly, during the end phase, you can target a Memento spell trap in your graveyard and set it. It means you can use Fusion or Bone Party and then throw it back face down, now used as disruption. And by nature of this deck being all quick play spells, it means you can start interacting on the opponent's turn. For example, if you have the Horn Dragon on field, you can use your Bone Party to reset off Miklan to pop your Horn Dragon, summon Anguish from the deck. Anguish can search either Sleepy to Fusion Summon on the opponent's turn, or Mace to Steel on the opponent's turn, but then use the Horn Dragon to pop your Anguish and two of your opponent's cards, generating your resources and cycling on the opponent's turn while still providing disruption. And the important part of all this is as well, while doing that, you're refilling the graveyard of the 5 cards to shuffle back off creation, so that even if they kill it this turn, unless they kill you as well, the creation comes back incredibly effortlessly. Now, those are all the Memento cards, and I know that went on for quite a bit, but the idea is to give you a good comprehension of the way this deck works and the lines that you go to make it all happen, because you are going to be cycling through all of it. I'm going to show you guys a couple games as well, but first I'm going to show some cool iterations of this deck and some other techs. A popular tech card in this deck, and one that I think is very good, is the Goblin Biker Grand Breakout, which plays into the theme of quick play spells. It attributes any monster to summon a goblin from your deck, but it can't attack this turn, which is whatever. It has a graveyard effect based on XYZs, but we're going to ignore that for now because we're not playing an XYZ deck. We're not playing Goblin Breakers. Breakers. I want to say Goblin Bakers too. Goblin Bikers. But yeah, this summons your Memento Goblin, which sends Sleepy and Gaddock, and then gets you rolling into your main combos. As well as can help you dodge cards like Imperm and Valor. Another important thing to look at here in the extra deck is the inclusion of Before Met Mythical King. It's a fusion monster that is a fiend that requires a Beast Fiend or Illusion. Its name becomes Chimera or whatever, and in this fusion summon you can send a Beast Fiend or Illusion from your deck to your graveyard, and then during your opponent's turn you can banish it to target one of your banished Beast Fiends or Illusions and summon it. So the fair use for this card is you can summon your Creation King and then put the Creation King in graveyard, banish from graveyard to add the Maitland the field spell, and then before that we'll special summon it from the banished pile later during the opponent's turn. That way the disruption is live and we don't have to refuse for it. And we can save a Chimera fusion or Guardian Chimera, which is very good. So how do we summon Bephomet then if it's not off Memento Fusion? Well, it's off Fiendsmith Sequence. And now you guys are like, oh, Jesse, you said this shit was budget. What are you talking about putting Fiendsmith cards in here? Okay, I'll show you guys the Fiendsmith version for if you're playing in Master Duel if you have the cards. But you don't need Fiendsmith cards to make Sequence because you just need a Light Fiend. And this is going to sound weird, but Moon of the Closed Heaven is just the Light Fiend that instead of linking into the Fiendsmith via Requiem, just links straight into Sequence. And in the process provides a Fiend to turn into Bephomet. So Bephomet plus the Task and Tushigo can now turn into your Bephomet. The point is, you have this ability to access the Fiendsmith engine, I guess, kind of, with this small little package. And it requires no cost to the main deck, and in terms of literal pricing cost, effectively like $1 or $2, which is super nice. Now this is the most plain Jane version of the deck. There are 2 other versions that you can use. I'm going to show you guys the Goblin Biker version, the one that just won the YCS in Houston, and the one that I'd probably play in the TCG at the moment, but does require about $25 extra in cards. So this is the Goblin Biker version, and ironically you play less of the Goblin Biker spell because you're making space for other Goblin cards and they'll be redundant, but you get to add a suite of 3 other Goblin 1-ofs. Goblin Biker Dug Charger, which can detach XC materials from either player's field, including a Rizal Detonator, to summon itself and then add a Goblin Biker spell trap next to your hand. Grand Entrance, which can add a Goblin next to your hand, and then also special a Goblin from your hand as well by detaching material from the XYZ, yours or your opponent's again, like Detonator. And again, this can also add Goblin, Memento. And lastly, rank 3 Big Gabonga, which is generic rank 3, which is why you play Terratop in this deck as an extender to add a Goblin from next to your hand. And then furthermore, if materials detached from a monster in the field, so you target a monster in the field and suck it up. Now, after that, you can also use this card to push through back row by making Zeus and Downard. So yeah, this is probably the way I would play the deck if you were playing it in the TCG, but it does require a little bit extra investment, which we'll get to, I guess, at the end of this video. And then lastly, would you briefly go over the Master Duel iteration of this deck, which includes Fiendsmith cards. You can play Fiendsmith cards in the TCG as well, but right now this is what I'm playing in Master Duel. Now, in Master Duel, you have some unique differences thanks to the ban list. You'll see 2 cards in my deck that are not legal in the TCG. One is Predaplant Verte Anaconda, the other is the Sprite Elf. Both are pretty important things to note if you're building this deck in Master Duel as powerful tools. Health can be used to protect from targeting. So, you know, if you want to protect your Sleepy from being targeted by imperm or whatever, you can defuse safely. And then also your end board pieces get to be relatively safe as well. It's also important to revive things in the opponent's turn, like Gaddock. This gives you even more flexibility than before. Anaconda is great because you can send a fusion spell from deck to grave to copy its effect. So you can send Memento Fusion. And that's crazy for multiple reasons. Because think about this. You send Memento Fusion and then you get to fuse by shuffling back from the grave and then summon Creation King and whatever. But you also get to just put Fusion in the grave, then banish it, pop the Anaconda to search. Now you can search another Fusion or a Bone Party to have disruption for the opponent's turn. Meaning you're not going to be caught empty-handed if you're only going Anaconda pass. It honestly is really powerful. I think that's kind of nuts. So both are things you mustn't forget to include in this deck. Okay, now before we get into the budgeting portion of the deck, let's first show you guys how a turn may be played out. And I'm not going to claim to play this deck absolutely perfectly because there are many different routes you can take in this deck. This Imperm here wasn't in my deck list. Just note that I can't play Prosperity in solo modes because the card is banned in Master Duel. So I swapped it out real quick. I wanted to not draw and not have to explain this, but to show you guys I'm not lying through face with my deck list. Yeah, there's an Impermanent. That being said, let me show you guys how a turn would play out. And again, may not play perfectly, but I'll show you guys the general idea here. So here my only starter is Darkblade. If this gets stopped, it is a bit rough. I don't have any quick play spells to push through. But once the pop resolves, in most cases it will, because it's not really the card you want to stop, then Sleepy can be used as an extender. So I'm going to get Anguish here. Anguish is your typical special off this because you can then get Tatsu no Tushigo. If you already have Tatsu no Tushigo off, then you likely are not going to add, or not going to summon Anguish. You're instead going to go for your Goblin to send from deck to grave immediately. You need to make sure you send from deck to grave, and the cards that this deck is weak getting stopped on are these cards. Because once you get stopped on the sends, then it gets kind of weird. Yeah, so say I'm going to add Horse here. And I'm going to summon the Horse. And I'm going to use the effects. Now, I'm going to play intentionally wrong here. I'm going to pop this. Now, I'm going to send Gaddock, of course. Gaddock is what you almost always want to send. I'm going to send more to the grave, though, to equal level 5. Now, what you'd send alongside this is Sleepy. Remember, this is the 2-card combo that you want to aim to send off Goblin or Horse. And because I already have the Sleepy, I don't need to add it back. So I'm going to send this nonsense to the grave instead. This can then come back, and I'm not going to add off it. Because let's say we don't have anything else. So let's don't go add back. So now I can go Sleepy to special summon. And I get the effect to fuse. Now, what you can do is you can go Twin Thunder here. Twin Thunder. I did it again. So I can fuse these away. And get the effect to pop. And you don't have to pop itself. You can pop Sleepy. So I'm going to pop Sleepy here. Your Sleepy will get to send from deck to grave. Now, what do I want to add from deck to hand? So right now, I've already cycled through my normal summon and the Horse. There's not much that does a lot go in hand. I like adding Combining Creation here. That way, if I get stopped at any point, I do have all the Mentos I need to just summon it. And then at least have this summon Anguish as both follow-up and disruption on the opponent's turn. So I want to add this. And then from deck to hand, also I want to add probably the Horned Dragon. This is disruption of the opponent's turn. Nothing here I will need immediately. And then I get to send from deck to graveyard for Sleepy because it was destroyed. And I get to send Memento Fusion because now I get to access the second fusion spell or the second fusion in this combo. I'm just going to pop this to search. And when this is popped, it'll be able to revive. So I'm going to bring back the Anguish because I haven't yet used its effects to summon from the graveyard. And when I get access to cards like Goblin and Mace, I'm going to want to do that. And I will be able to at some point. So we'll plop that down there for now. The next thing I want to do is get access to Creation King and then Meatland. So this will shuffle back cards as well. You want to put back the Twin Dragon. Oftentimes is most important to put back. And the rest is not super important. So I like putting back Sleepy so I can search it later off Anguish if I need to. And then cards you may get multiple of. So because I already have an Anguish, I'm going to put this back. I don't want to have multiple in my grave. I'm going to get Combined Creation. And then I get to send from deck to graveyard. 3. And now fusion monsters, ideally you place in these zones 1, 2, or 3. That way if you have a cross sheep line come up, you can make good use of it. Now there's a couple things you can do here. You can send this from deck to graveyard, your Tekohikla, to add this from deck to hand, or you can link this off and do that. And why linking it off doesn't matter is because, as I mentioned, if you get to Bephromit, you can revive it back. I'm more used to not using Bephromit, so until I'm more comfortable with that line, I'm just going to send the second one. And then I'm going to send Akihiro on alongside it. And then I want to send Goblin, I'm pretty sure. I'm going to send Goblin. Okay. There we go. Next, I'm going to get the field spell up so I can keep reviving. And the grave did get shoveled back a little bit, but now it's refilled. So you see, I'm not shy on resources at all. Meatline is important because Meatline also turns into converting a spell card in the graveyard. So you can see now this is not going to be reset. So now I don't need to add it back. Or if I use Bone Party, you can use it and add it back. But I'm going to use Anguish to pop itself. I'm going to revive the Goblin because I haven't used it yet. Again, cycle through all the names. Now, because I destroyed Akihiron, comes back. I'm not going to use this just yet. I don't want to revive level 3 lower. I want to save it for Mace, because the last thing I haven't used yet is Mace, right? Yeah, I have not used Mace yet. Now, Goblin can send 2 from deck to graveyard. I'm going to destroy the Akihiron. And from deck to graveyard, what do I want to send? The Mace I want to send, and then something else that I'll probably just shuffle back. And then the card, let's send Anguish, I guess. It's fine. Yeah, sure. Then I get both effects. I get to revive now, and I'm going to target the Akihiron to revive a lower level monster, and then use this effect to special summon. So what I can do is I can revive or add back a card. I'm going to add back the banished copy of Memento Fusion, because the Mace is going to add the Bone Party, so I'm still going to have access to both in rotation. Get this back, and then I'm going to still have one engraved for next turn as well, which is great. Special summon out the Mace, last card I haven't used yet. Now I can use the effect to pop the Goblin, and then grab Bone Party. Get my Royal Rare. This card does nothing in the hand, so I can just pop this. Special one from deck to get another resource cycling. So let's pop the Combined Creation. Special from deck. And then summon... what is it? Doesn't matter, right? I guess I do have 2 Anguishes engraved right now. I do have 2 Anguishes engraved. It doesn't actually matter. Summon this, whatever. Special summon to the field. Yes. So an important thing to do to play on Nib is summon SP. That way, if you get nibbed, you can dodge. But even if you get Valor on the SP as well, it's not that important because keep in mind you have all these things that pop and come back. The way to play on Nib here, I guess, is you want to make sure that you have any memento. That way, you can activate Bone Party. So I am going to do the play here to go SP. So let's link off these. And then go into sequence. So Creation King in the graveyard is revivable off of both the Mental Meatlan and off of the Combined Creation, so it might be fine to leave it in the graveyard, but I think probably still is better to get banished, so let's just fuse. Summon back this, put back this, and put back one of these other cards, put back the Tushigo. Cool, summon this out. And I can dump from deck to the graveyard. Again, just put more names in the grave is not a bad thing, because you never know when it becomes a resource in the future. Put the horse back. I'm going to summon this here. That way, if I get Valor on SP, I can dodge. I do want to make... I guess not a huge deal if I get Valor on SP and my guy doesn't get banished for Baphomet, but I would like to do it. And then, here we go. Let's banish the... Oop, no, that's the wrong one. Creation King. Well, honestly, you just need to have anything banished. The second anything is banished, you get to use Baphomet on the opponent's turn. Remember, the whole reason behind this is that way if I get Nib plus Valor at this point, when I summon this back, I have any Memento to pop off of Memento Fusion to cycle my plays. And to show you what I can do if I get nibbed, let's quickly just link things away. So let's make Access Code Talker. So say I got nibbed. This is a nib token. Let's say that. And I set my cards face down. I'm not going to set these for now. I'm going to get Dustered, watch. And then in the end phase, we get to reset. And I already have the other one, so let's reset the Bone Party. Let's see how I can interact. Because you may think like, oh, I got nibbed, there's nothing left. Well, that's not true. That's part of why we did this. Got a boss rush. Okay. So I can go Special Chimera. Get out the Creation King. I'm not going to pop the right card here. I'm going to show you the level of disruption that is existent here. Okay. So that comes out. Cool. And then I can go... Oh, I'm going to toggle on. BS counter. What does this do to the BS counter? Am I going to like get negated? Pressure by battle? Cool, whatever. I'm going to use the effect, and then I'll start chaining afterwards. Alright, so now I can go Combine Creation, or Creation King. Pop this, I guess. Sure. And then I get to trigger both of these. So I get special from grave. And special from grave again. Selecting the high level target. So I got 1 pop there. And then the cycle will continue to let me keep doing stuff. So off this, I want to revive my Horn Dragon. And I'm going to grab Akihiron as well. And then still on summon, what I can do. Yeah, give my ability to attack directly on my opponent's turn. That's great. Then I'm going to use Bone Party. I'm going to pop this. Special from deck. I'm going to get Anguish now, which will search on summon. And then whatever. And then this gets the trigger when it gets popped. And it triggers on summon to search. So I get to pop a guy I control. So I can pop this. Theirs and... Sure, whatever this. Yeah. Obviously, it's supposed to be your opponent's cards, but I have to pop 3. Then add from deck to hand. I can go Sleepy. Akihiron effect, lets me add back a card. So what do I want to add back for next turn? I can add back the banished card if I need one back, or I can add back a card from the grave to fuse with. Say I want to add back this, because it can be good in grind games to keep clearing fields. Summon Sleepy to fuse. If you had Gaddock in grave, it would be even more bodies here. And then I get to do this. And then I can fuse immediately. Summon out this. Fusing away the Anguish and this if I want. You can see here how the grave is completely refilled now for the next turn. Like, I'm not going to have a problem summoning Combined Creation. It's all there for me to plunder again. I can pop the Sleepy. Add from deck to hand. Doesn't matter. Add the Mace, I guess. With the Goblin, so I can discard it when I have Combined Creation up. Sleepy sent from deck to grave. You see follow-up here is it's just cheating. Like, send the Gaddock now, it comes back. And this feels like tier, the amount of summons I have on the opponent's turn. The Gaddock will add back as well now. What do I want to add back off this? Sure. And then I can use this Diffuse. And I've already used Creation King this turn, so this is where you summon Guardian Chimera instead. And if you want 2 pops, you fuse 2 off the field. And you don't get this, but that's fine. Like, this is not hard. Then pop 2 and draw 1. So this is, they've discarded 2 cards in their hand because they Veiler Nibbed you. But you still got to go pop on the Arm Dragon. You still got to pop with Creation King. And you got a Guardian Chimera. So you still essentially had 3 layers of pretty strong disruption through all of that. And that just speaks to the level of power this deck has and the complexity to where you can't really interact with them. And honestly, it can feel almost gargantuan of a task to beat this when it goes first. And then obviously when you have more extenders, you can really push this agenda more. For example, something you can do with Cross Sheep, and if you have more level 3s, you can just manipulate your levels in a way where you end on your Gossip Shadow. It's just another way of monster negation to put off Nib or end on more negates. But yeah, this really isn't a big problem. Okay, now that we've seen how powerful this deck is, you can see like this just comes back next turn, shuffle back, whatever. What's the next step? How do we budget this out? How much does this cost after we're all done with it? It's just easy 8,000. No problems. Let's head over to TCGplayer and take a look. Okay, so here I'm on TCGplayer, and I've built a core of the deck for what you may need in just the engine, no staples, for the more pure version. So no goblins and or just the goblin breakout, but none of the goblin bikers and none of the Fiendsmith cards, and no staples. We'll optimize, and I'll get this link to you guys in the chat as well, so you guys can do this as well. It will also support the channel. Get it down to just $50. Nice. And then obviously you build your staples how you want. Now, from the list that I showed you guys, you can add the staples to the card and some other cards you may already have. This is part of the Goblin package, which we'll price out afterwards, but yeah, say we need to add this, we don't already have it. Like we're buying from scratch. Let's add these to cart. Add SP. Add our Fuga losses. Drolls. I think the Charmies are pretty good right now. However, obviously they're expensive, so the only one you can really get is Fuga. Fuga is the best one though, and it's a good long-term investment as well. A card shouldn't be going down anytime soon, so if you're thinking of picking it up, I'd say now's a good time. Although I know it is still a bit pricey. We'll see here, it does add a decent amount to the budget. The nice thing about this, we'll go over the prices more in detail, is that most of the cards just aren't expensive. Like they aren't, they got reprinted. But yeah, so if we optimize this, how does this turn out? This is with all the staples, including food loss. So yeah, 128, obviously, or 120 with the shipping. This is more, is a little pricey, but this includes cards that hopefully you already have. And if you've been following the budget series for a while and you've bought these already, just remember that when cards get reprinted, that's pretty much as cheap they'll be unless they get reprinted again. You can't wait too long, otherwise they go up. Because if we go back to like my old budget videos and I show off SP, it was probably half the price, maybe less. Food loss will likely go up over time. So if you're not planning on buying them in like half a year, by the time the next one reprinted, then fine. But if you want them and you think you want them over the next year or so, get them now. This is the best chance you have. Now from the Memento cards themselves, what exactly is eating up the price? Well, you can see here most of the stuff is pretty cheap. Importantly, 2 cards that were expensive got reprinted, and that was the cards that showed off at the start, the Memento Anguish and Bone Party. Both are now in Quarter Century Stampede, so you can get them in cool rarities if you want, and they probably won't cost that much more. As a sort of replacement though, cards that have gone up are the Super Rares from Valiant Smasher. These have gone up a little bit as a complimentary good. And then also Combined Creations card was worth a couple dollars for a while. Now this card is a bit more expensive. That being said, it's not bad. Keep in mind, this deck plays this as a one of, so it doesn't impose too much. Say you want to fully deck this out, be fully meta, and we add all of these to the card to get the Goblin version that I mentioned. And then we will optimize again, and let's see what we end up at. If I recall, last time I did this, it was 150-ish, yeah. It adds about $25 to the card. If you do this, you end up with a $150 cart, and you get pretty much a full complete YCS winning deck. And that's kind of sick. So I am super happy with that. Now there are changes you can make, obviously, depending on what you have, what you want. But I just want to express some love for Memento, because I love when cheaper decks can do well in the meta, as well as decks that have unique and rewarding playstyles. For example, mastering this deck will be a significant jump in power and boost than learning this deck, which makes it more fun to experience and to spend time learning. So I urge you guys all to do that, and let me know what you think of this budget deck, as well as if you want to see me take this deck to locals. Now, as I was building, I realized I can just do it in Master Duel because it exists in both formats, but if you want to see me go to locals and actually play with it, I'm down. The cards, again, aren't hard to get, so I can easily do that myself. And also let me know what you think of doing more TCG deck profiles in Master Duel, because it may help for the viewer experience, even though this is a primarily TCG oriented video. With that said, I'll see you guys all next time. Have a good one.